right. So we're going to get into our next segment, which is about. So what I named it, I keep giving things my own names. I don't know why these women put up with me. We'll give something a name, then may come up with new names. But this one is called From Our Point of View. There are a lot of things you guys can probably agree that, men have such a different point of view, and we also have a different point of view because our lived experiences are so different. Okay. And the first thing that came to mind was because of a conversation we had on set, I think, but even yesterday when we were speaking to a couple of younger men and women. And it was around something that Claire said in one of our previous episodes about, I'm going to put it in air quotes and I'll tell you why. Please don't feel attacked. But also, the unpopular opinion, it's fine. About the empowerment of the boy child. Okay, I said what I said. But so let me start with Claire because she's the one who first shared it. And I'll share my 2 cents and invite the gentleman to join us as well.
I genuinely believe that um, a lot of people believe we are balancing the scale by empowering the women, which is fantastic. But I just feel like we are raising the woman and leaving the man behind. Now, you're going to tell me the pay gap is different. Is yes, it is 100%. That is absolutely not refuted. However, I think the way I look at it is more on a personal, one-to-one interaction with men more, because I don't work with men personally. I've never worked, I'm a teacher. How many men teachers do you know? I'm a preschool teacher, that's what I do. So I don't work with men. So I haven't seen that in my field of work, that men are, so it's not something I will talk so much on because I have not much knowledge on, yeah? But what I'm anyway, so I may have a son one day, and we can't deny that the women are empowered. We have a right, we have a voice, we have, yes, there's a lot more work to do. But when I think about it, I'm thinking about it in a relational way, in a relational manner, that the woman has been so empowered, the girl child has been so empowered, but the boy child hasn't been taught how to deal with an empowered woman. You get?
Is there an amen for that? I'd like to know where you guys are. You guys are feeling that. Okay.
So the most important female and male relationship is in a marriage. The most important female and male. I mean, I can work with you. You don't need to like me. You don't need to respect me. You don't need to whatnot. And then I'm going to go home. You do, but it's not going to affect my life personally if I sit with a man who doesn't respect women. Yeah, it's annoying AF, but it's not going to make me not sleep at night. However, if I'm married to a man, and a man is married to me, and I'm an empowered woman, and he is not an empowered man. He has not been taught how to deal with an empowered woman. He is still in the women have to do A, B, C, and D. Then we leave the most important unit. I'm a Christian woman, so I believe that the most important unit in the entire world is a family. And a family is made up of, at least here in Uganda, it's made up of a husband and a wife, or a man and a woman, partners. And if that unit is not working out, then the whole world is not working out, because it begins at home, you know? So if us women are coming home and we're making money and stuff like that, but the men we are marrying do not know how to deal with us empowered women, then what are we doing? So when I say that men need to be empowered as well, the boy child needs to be taught how to deal with a girl child. Because these days, it's like, oh, women are like this, women are like this. Okay, even as we're saying men are like this and men are like that, and we're just not aligning. Why? Because women are being taught something and men are being taught something completely different. So when we come together, he knows something, you know something, it's not aligning.
What does it look like for you to what could it? I mean, no, you don't have. I know you don't have a son right now, but what could it look like? Like I'm trying to understand that thing of teaching the boys to how to deal with what does that mean?
Okay, I'd say something like, okay, so have men been taught how to deal if their woman is the one making more money? Do you know what I mean? Like they have been taught, and it's drilled in all men's heads that they're the ones who have to make the money. But we don't live in that same economy. Women have been taught how to make money as well, you know? So now you find yourself in a relationship and somehow you're making more money, but the man believes he should be making more money. But he's not because he's not hardworking, but that's how the economy is. Maybe his job generally pays less, you know, and I'm a business person, I make a lot more money.
Okay.
So has he been taught how does you see how women always say men want submissive providers? Yeah, you're the one bringing money, but you're also the one going to cook. You're also going to be the one to serve the food and take the plate away. You get? And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that if you're providing, what's he doing?
All right. So I mean, I'd love to hear what if you guys also feel that there's a gap there, from a man's perspective. Well, how do you feel about, how I guess this takes us into how we're raising men, well, raising boys and how we're raising girls. Do you feel like there's something there to be, and I'll tell you guys why I struggle with the term empowerment in particular. I agree with what Claire is saying. I struggle with nomenclature in particular because I've worked in, please, Gideon, please allow me to speak my English. So because I've worked in civil society and around advocacy, I know, I've witnessed the power of naming things. So when you take empowerment and we talk about the empowerment of women and you use that same word to say the empowerment of men, you'd be surprised that the space it opens up for, well, let's say misogynists, sexists, to stand in that space and say, actually, the men did it. And yet the truth is our circumstances are not the same. I mean, when we talk about whether it's the gender pay gap or any number of things, our experiences in workplaces or in relationships, abuse and so on, it's not the same. And so I struggle with the word empowerment in particular, and I struggle with the term boy child. Because the truth is men come into this world with a certain level of privilege that we don't.
Yeah.
And it's difficult often for men to see it. And I understand because they just simply haven't experienced it, period. That's why we have to have conversations. If you've not experienced, if you don't see that when our boss comes in, he talks to me a certain way because you're not spoken to that way. I can't even blame you. You're seeing things through a certain lens that, you just can't understand what I'm saying, and maybe I sound even hysterical to you.
Yeah.
But so for me, it's just like the naming of things that bothers me because it always creates a certain gap for people to just come in and be like, yes, actually, the empowerment, and then they take it in like a whole other direction. But let me go back to you. What your thoughts?
Yeah. Where do I start? This is a very loaded conversation, right? And many times it kind of it generates a lot more anger and animosity, which is very understandable. But I'd like to think that as a human race, we want to be better. We want to do better, right? So first of all, there should be a very loud recognition that for a very long time, women have been put down by men, right? And that recognition has got to come especially from men. But that's a first step, right? And it should be an equivocal recognition. Like there shouldn't be but. It's just what it is. That's the first thing. Now, putting that in mind, I just like you, I'm very reserved on the use of, I want to borrow your word, nomenclature, right? I'm very reserved on the use of that word because it, as you said, it gives room to unwanted, undesirable, and often dangerous, entries into a conversation that should be that should be heading a certain direction, and then people make room for unwanted bodies in that conversation. So I'm very much against nomenclature. My viewpoint has always been that if you're raising a child, right, don't raise a boy or a girl, raise a child first. I feel like somebody needs to clap for that. Yeah. Because when you raise a good human, like just a good human, there's many things you don't have to worry about. It fixes so many problems. You don't have to worry whether the boy is being disrespectful to a girl, because disrespect is just not good. As simple as that. So start by raising a good child. That's the first place. Now, secondly, there's obviously the recognition that, as I said, women have been put down for a very long time by men. Now, when you raise somebody who is a decent, good human being, they're going to be aware about any injustice that happens to any human being. Doesn't matter what their gender is, to any human being. It's just simple as that. And for me, as idealistic as it is, I would like to think that the conversation around gender roles and all these things has been reduced to a battle between genders, and yet as humanity we should be looking at how to better the entire race. Because when you look at it wholesomely and you raise your boy to respect people, he's not going to say, okay, so how do I respect a woman? How do I respect a man? He's going to respect people. As simple as that, right? And similarly, when you raise a girl to be assertive, whether it's with a woman or a man or whatever space, she knows what her duties, her responsibilities, and her rights are. As simple as that. So first you start by removing this toxic anger of men versus women, and you start by removing that. And then finally, now kind of bringing it back home into, relating and whatnot. As I mentioned earlier on, one of the duties of every person is to unlearn, which is a very, very hard thing. That we've grown up in a society that has instructed all of us and constructed us into these individuals who must be defined as this person. This is what a married woman must do. This is what a married man must do. And they are not cognizant of that thing that he mentioned, that every partnership has got its own do's and don'ts. Every partnership has got its own, kind of like menu, things they feed on. This partnership might be vegetarian, and you're telling them on the menu you must have dark meat. What are you saying? Are you saying they're not feeding well? So every partnership has got its own kind of way of doing things. Once the two partners recognize that I must be committed to my person, I must respect them, right? And I must recognize them as a full, empowered human being, you never have to worry about gender issues. So for me, the solution isn't necessarily and as I said, it's good to recognize that women have been put down for a very long time. But the battle between men and women is going to be endless unless somebody says, you know what, you guys, this battle that is ongoing, it doesn't seem to be benefiting anybody, right? Because once women stand up and say, look, we've been put down for a long time, and it's the actual truth, there's going to be men that side who are thinking to themselves, these women are questioning the status quo, which means they want to take away from us. And part of getting involved in a conversation means giving away power. And that's a very painful thing for men. That's a very painful thing, yeah? For all these years, they've been enjoying all these privileges, and now suddenly they're being questioned, and you want them to pay attention to that? So there's obviously going to be the fight back. So for me, my suggestion, my hope would be, as a person, as a parent, when you're raising your child, when you're raising this boy child, girl child, you don't compartmentalize and say, so how do I raise a boy? Or how do I raise a girl? Just raise a good human being. The rest you don't have to worry about. That's my thinking.
Let me just join you guys in clapping because that was you gave us a word. Like you gave us ooh, okay. So while we're speaking of parenting, I think maybe let me hand this to you. No, actually, let me ask you guys first. And oh, I see you, dear. Okay, I'm going to give you an opportunity to speak right after this. I just want to see like from like sort of a survey. Let's take a bit of a survey. So for the ladies, like, raise your hand if this is true for you. I am loved at home. I am enough. Okay. All right. I recognize that there are few men in the place, but even for the gentlemen, raise your hand if this is true for you. I am loved at home. I am enough. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. You're double loved. All right. Okay. Okay. That's. I am specifically asking that. You want to ask a question? Okay. So there's two questions. I'm going to give. Let's give Daisy a mic first. Go ahead.
Thank you, Fee.
You look good.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, dear. Be wall. I love.
I'm sorry. Is her mic okay? I don't think we can. I feel like we can't hear her.
Okay. Okay. They said I should put it closer. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay. So I love your opinion is very idealistic, and I love it. 2 days ago, my son, my 5-year-old, we were prepping them for school, and he said, "Mommy, Alishka's mom is getting married. Will you give daddy another child if he marries you again?" And that's my 5-year-old child. And then he went ahead to say, perhaps two, because now Anka is older, and so I need a boy, and Asante needs another girl. This is my 5-year-old boy. And then he went ahead to ask, by the way, who am I going to marry? And he's 5. I just wanted to say that whether we like it or not, the challenges of boys and girls are different. And as much as we hope and pray that we would raise these children just as children, from a tender age of 5, they are aware of the differences. And I feel like to raise them just as children is to take them away from the realities of the fact that boys, it's actually impossible. Yeah. So I just like when you were saying that, I was like, okay, yeah, maybe it's idealistic. I'm a Christian. We teach them respect and hope. We are trying. I mean, parenting is not even defined anywhere. But is it practical? I don't know. I mean, I just started thinking about Avery, who is asking who he's going to marry at 5. So, and of course, Asante is thinking about ballet and other things of princesses. So I don't know how I feel about just. And I agree, that we need to raise children as human beings, but we cannot deny that the challenges they face as boys and girls are different.
Yeah, can I just, I agree with you 150%, right? The challenges that boys and girls face are worlds apart. And sometimes, many times, boys have access to places, people, and opportunities just by virtue of being boys, right? And girls, unfortunately, on the other hand, don't have access to the same people, places, and opportunities just because they are girls, right? And everybody is going to talk about how you need your child to be aware of, if they're a boy, their privilege, if they're a girl, the disadvantages the world is going to throw at them. Everybody is going to do that. I will be the one to say, while everybody is doing that, I'm not saying don't do it. Don't listen to what they're saying. Do it. But somebody also has to say that, why don't you raise your child as a good child, right? And as I said, it sounds idealistic, but I would like to think that if everybody is drumming, in a band, right? Every instrument player has a role to play. and there are times when there's a solo, right? There's a guitar solo, there's a drum solo, there's a piano, whatever. And when that solo is playing, it doesn't mean the others are non-existent. No, it just means you must allow yourself to listen to this particular thing. And that's the thing I am saying, right? That all of what you're saying is very true. We cannot be blind to that. It's the truth. But I would like you also to remember at the back of your mind that when you're raising your child, you have a role to play in either making them join the misogyny and patriarchy, or in making them recognize that that thing is bad for any human being, irrespective of your gender. It's just bad, right? So for me, that's the angle that I would like to approach, because it will be a never-ending war and battle. And yes, there's all these disadvantages that the world has hurled at women just because they are women. But I'm an eternal optimist, for starters. I'm an eternal optimist, right? And I like for people to speak positivity first, but then also to act positivity. That if you're going to raise your child as a decent human being, first of all, you have to be the decent human being, right? So that they learn from you. And so if your child learns that you respect, your husband, the husband respects the wife, where are they going to learn disrespect from? Right? So for me, my thinking is just, as idealistic as it sounds, like you said, I would like for parents to not drag their children into the battle, because they do unknowingly sometimes, and some might argue it's helpful because they need to be aware of the differences of the world. But in recognizing those differences, you conscript them into a war they shouldn't be a part of. That's just my argument, right? That don't conscript the child into a battle that they shouldn't be a part of. Let them be a decent human being, period.
Interesting. I feel like actually on some level you're agreeing with each other. And if you guys feel the same, there's definitely some agreement there that it's difficult. Like the ideal, the thing we want to be optimistic about is what we actually all want. Where I think we're just also afraid because you're like, man, but can we? But Claire, you'd like to say something?
Yes. So remember, the topic for this is the man of your dreams versus the woman of yours. So essentially, we are talking about a relationship, a romantic relationship between men and women, because that's where we really struggle. Who cares if it's somehow in the office, it's not as, it's bad, but it's just, you can go home and sleep. And so you see how most women will agree that we have been taught how to respect our men. Omusajja tomukola bati. Omusajja tomukola bati. Am I lying? I'm not. Yeah? Who is going to marry you? You're 5. You get? So it's been drummed in us how to respect a man. And on the other hand, I had very, very close family member of mine. He's 50, and he said to me that when he first got married, he had no idea how to lead. Yeah? And he says that one of the biggest problems men face in relationships, and specifically, I'll say marriage, in that long-term relationship, whether you marry, a long-term relationship, is that most men have no clue how to lead. What it means. Have you ever been sat down by your koja, your father, neighbor, and say, this is how you lead a family? You get? And that's a big question. And I believe personally as a married woman that without leadership and submission, there is no good marriage. I believe that 100%. I know a lot of single women, what? You get married. You get married.
It'll be interesting to see how many of us agree with that. Do you?
How many married women or people in long-term relationships with men? Or
I think
is
everyone.
it true? Is it true? It's true. It doesn't matter. If you come in with that, I don't submit. Get? But the problem now is the leadership. How many women, that man that leads you, how many women would submit?
What do you mean?
How many women, like if you get a leader, a man that is leading you, Kati baby tukole kino. And by the way, leading you doesn't mean commanding you. And that's the thing, leading where is, well, yes, leading, there's leadership is only good in my opinion. Any bad leadership is not really leadership. You get? So what I'm trying to get at here is the two things. Women have been taught to respect. Men have not been taught to lead. So we are supposed to submit to leadership that is kwara. You get, like, that's how the scales are not being balanced. That's how I'm trying to say that, okay, we are leaders. Women are natural born leaders. Am I lying? We are natural born leaders.
You've been taught to what?
We are leaders.
Could you
Sorry,
give
we're
her a
being
mic?
taught
I would
to
love to
submit.
hear.
And that's you've been taught to what?
I don't know what you've been taught, but definitely not to lead. No, Wanda, have you ever been sat down by a male figure in your life and told you this is how
Yeah.
to lead? Okay, what did he say to you?
First of all, you've thrown me off because what you're saying there is just like,
Unpopular.
you girls have done what? First of all, you're saying, Omukazi takolachi. When they say, when talking to the young girls, they say, talking to Fumbira Kolachi, that's most likely a mom saying that, not even a guy. Yeah. Let's be real. Yeah. Which is an indication of the deficiency in their understanding of who they are. Let's not go there. So is the man in this then. It's the mom telling you that, not the man. The man ain't got business. He ain't have any business telling you that. It's your mom.
To say, yes, for a man can't teach a woman how to be a woman.
Right.
And a woman cannot teach a man how
absolutely.
to be a man.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yes, of course, it's going to be a woman that's going to teach a girl how to be.
There's a deficiency still in you guys. Don't come here and say you're perfect.
I'm not saying we're
No,
perfect.
not like that. Not like that. No, guys, come on now. This is love.
I'm not saying we are
Don't
perfect.
worry, don't
I'm
worry.
just
Guys,
saying,
this is us.
this
You know what I mean?
conversation,
Because
you know what I mean?
this is reggae. We have to understand this reggae here, by the way, seriously. Because again, it's a threat to, like, I'm a man. You don't expect me to sit here and act like, guys, okay, nah, not me, no Wonder JR. No chance, mate. You know what I mean? So, when you tell me that men are not leaders, let's first see where we came from. We're agrarian, right?
Yes.
We're hunter-gatherers. We were traditionalists.
Yeah.
Even the Bible has that as well.
Uh-huh.
There's still this patriarchy. These are things that we don't like to talk about, but there were issues in there. But it was still leadership nonetheless. Me, I'm a believer that as a parent, most is caught than is taught. Again, when you become the embodiment of what you believe in, the kids will catch that with the eyes, not because everyone talks a good game. Delivery is a whole different thing, right? And as a parent, I believe there are parents who exude men, father figures. A father sets boundaries. A woman is desirable. They know how to apply that. Both that dynamic is what's essential for what? For a family, right? I have someone close to me that has a son and raised a son on her own. And this guy is struggling. This guy is struggling to identify with the mom. This guy is 10 years old. This is real. All he wants is the dad. The dad is deadbeat. He's a fake guy. Let's be real. He's a fake guy. But this guy doesn't care. I want my dad. That means there's something the mom is not doing. There's something a mom cannot even do. She's not even qualified remotely to take that role. You see what I'm saying? So we cannot function independently of that. So I believe there's men who are doing a good job. I mean, most of us are out here doing, well, we have a lot of rubbish going on. That's the truth, right? But, we have a lot of rubbish. Let me tell you, I'm trying to become better today than I was yesterday. That's the honest truth. But when it comes to a family dynamic, the woman doesn't have it figured out. Let's be real. Yeah. Because the fact that you see it that way clearly shows that there's something desperately wrong. Right? Desperately wrong. Our inability to admit that is a clear signal. So we're all here trying to figure out, where are we lacking? Are we willing to unlearn and relearn, readjust, reprioritize? I feel like when I see my close relative battling to have her son find her father. I mean, his father. And that's all he cares about. It's like, wait, mom, you guys, your dad is doing this, is a fake. Listen, mom, me, all I want is to see how fake he is face to face. That's all I want. And the more you deprive him of that, the more you're creating a chaotic child. At 15, 16, that boy will be in and out of rehab like a bad habit. And you'll create that dysfunction that you've been fighting against all this time. So you're working backwards now, right? So this dynamic is interesting. And that, again, shows it's an indication of what's on the inside. I told you guys, the answer to the world around you.
Okay, well said. All right, I see there was someone, I think it was Cyrus. Cyrus' hand was up first. Okay, let's start with Cyrus. And then, okay, there's someone right in front of Cyrus. Let me go in order so I don't lose people. So Cyrus, then Abbas. Your hand was up? Or there's someone in front of you? Cyrus, and then the lady in the colorful. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Go
My
ahead.
name is Cyrus Bugaba Clinton Clive Kran Machisude Chibidige.
We know you.
Good to see you guys. I was so mine is a little bit on the other side, but it was just a point. I think you told us about raising our hands if we were loved and cared for at home, and I rose up my hand because ideally I'm like alone at home, but I cannot wait to see what it will look like when I have probably when I'm plural from like singular. Number two, I understand this is a fellowship. Based on my understanding, I think this is a fellowship whereby we have all these topics that have been fronted by the unpopular opinion chickidees together with our mandems up front there. But, and based on what my man's up there has talked about, is us trying to find how best we can capture these indifferences and then make them proper. Yeah? So as you're speaking, okay, I just want to stress this out. I'm not homophobic, but I got a whisper from a close neighbor. And he was like, we are here talking about these two genders, but then there are the other guys who are she them for him. And my honest opinion is in Basasi Day, because now as we are busy trying to, address the facts of gender and, women and men. Also, I just want to put out an understanding based on, it's my opinion, yeah? So, Musumba, you can back me up on this one, Reverend.
We'll see.
Mama. Anyway, my basic understanding of how best we can raise and blah, blah, how best we can bring the man together and the woman, I think is because two are in the same rib, yeah? So, man and woman, whatever baggage that a man is, I think is the woman. So I think as we are busy fighting that go musajja man, men are bad, women are what? I think we're all the same trash, yeah? So it's just us collecting ourselves and to get HTZ. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cyrus, what have you said, bro?
So maybe we can give the mic to the lady with the head wrap.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi.
I just have a question. So Claire, you said that in marriage, there is always leadership. For it to work, there's always leadership and there's always submission. So let me start off by saying that I'm not married, but how I've always understood that interaction, or my ideal way of seeing that interaction would be more of a partnership. And me as an individual, I'm very hyper independent. So I've reached a place in my life where I understand that if someone came and told me, hi Paul, I don't know, came and told me to do something with my money, like, oh no, don't buy a car, let's go and buy a house. I would be like, were you with me when I was waking up early? So like for me as a person, I've seen that if I'm in a situation where I have to submit, it might be the beginning of the end of the marriage. And it might also be that I don't have the appropriate definition of submission and leadership. So yeah, if you could just enlighten that, yeah.
So if, for example, there was when we decided like we're going to have the Unpopular Opinion live show, and Prim said she wants it at this location, I said I want it at this location, and Fiona said she wants it at this location. Is there a partnership? Would end up fighting, right? Would end up fighting. Either there's not going to be an unpopular, there's going to be a lot of contention. So we all gave the veto. If it's a tie, the veto is hers. She has 1 extra point over us. Does that make sense? Why? Does it mean because she is a lot more intelligent or a lot better or a lot, you get? Because we've chosen her as our leader. Do you get what I mean? When we get paid, we get paid equal. But we've chosen her as the leader. Does that make sense? So in our partnership, if I'm he wants to buy in Gayaza. Do I get my money and buy my own land in Chigo? Does he get his money and buy his land in Gayaza? You get? Uh-huh.
Why is it that the leader has to be the man?
'Cause
The one submitting has to be the
do you see how you have breasts and you give birth? Why are you the one who has breasts and you give birth? That's just how it was made. There's absolutely no reason. There's absolutely no reason, you get. But let me tell you, a leader, a man that leads well is easy to follow. You do not want to be a leader in your, I resigned. You don't want to be a leader in your marriage.
Okay, let me.
I came in with that whole, I've been married 4 years. I resigned 2 years ago.
I see some feelings are coming up. Okay, that's good. We love it here. We encourage that. I wanted, because we're speaking about submission and leadership, and for the most part, those terms have come out of, I hope you would agree, I think you would agree as well, that they've come out of our probably religious understanding of these things. So it would be interesting to hear from you on your thoughts on submission and leadership and their place in a partnership, a marriage.
Thank you.
Pressure. Welcome.
Yeah. So this is a, it's a very, in there, and it has been abused. All right. So the idea really, the view is headship and support, leadership and submission. The reason, when you're talking about coming from a religious point, and in this case, the Christian viewpoint, men are not leaders because they are men. That's I don't know how many times, unfortunately, that's what the system has pushed. That's what the church leaders have pushed. And forgive us for doing that. Men are not leaders because they are men. They are leaders because God has ordained it. And that's what we should be pointing to if we're going to ever talk about submission. And therefore, it is from his perspective, if we're going to use those words to define marriage, it is from God's perspective that we define what leadership is and what submission is. Number two, just because we conflate, we tend to conflate roles with tasks. The role that we are given as head does not mean it is defined by the task. It means the tasks we can interchangeably do the tasks. The woman can become the provider, but I still remain the head. Does that make sense? But because the world has pushed a narrative that has desecrated the order, we then look at submission as being a doormat and headship as being the king of all. And this problem started, like I said, post Genesis 3. And God declared this problem from that beginning. You see, when man breaks the law, when woman was deceived, according to the story in Genesis 3, what the consequences that God spoke about when it came to the relationship between man and woman. The woman will desire after the man. People usually think that it's a longing for the man and whatnot. No, it's an issue of control. They want to control the power the man has, which is the headship, to usurp that place, because now it has been corrupted. And the man, as a reaction, will rule over the woman. Ruling over the woman. So now we are looking at headship as rulership over the woman, when from the very beginning, man and woman were meant to rule together. And in that ruling together, they were expressing their roles as head and as support through the different tasks they had. But it remained that way. When that breaks, then we're going to be fighting over who the head is and why do we have to be the head. And it breaks because, as did Adam, we took God out of the story. It now became about us. And when it becomes about us, I promise you this gender war will never end.
Ooh, that's a word. Let's clap.
Great. Agnostica koza atia. Agnostica koza atia.
Can I just say that when they're editing the other ones that we put on social media, that one, so that one is the one that we want on social, that one.
Yeah, so I worry that very many people, and I mentioned this to him earlier on, that part of why most agnostics, at least the ones I know, actually read the Bible is, I mean, one, we hunger for information, that's one, right? But then it's got a lot of life lessons, just basic life lessons without necessarily attaching any religion or spirituality to it. But outside of that, I think part of why I agree with the idea of the head and support is because in any functional system in this world, there's got to be a hierarchy. You can't run away from that. There has got to be a hierarchy, right? So the argument between the people involved in the hierarchy is not on who is more powerful. That's not it. Because that's where, and from what he's saying, that's where we get it wrong. The assumption is one person must be more powerful than the other. But that's not it. The understanding between the two of them is how this hierarchy will work for them. It's just that simple. So if for you and your person, what will work for you, right, is not this, kneel for me, do what. If that won't work for you, there's a person for whom that system will work, right? So the idea is not what the system is. The idea is what works for you. Ultimately, and which is the purpose of this entire conversation, I think there should be some kind of agreement within yourself, right? That, okay, so this is the direction that the world is taking, and perhaps it's working for them. But what direction do I want for myself? A direction that will ensure that you and the person you're in this partnership with are benefiting. That's very, very important. Because many times when people get into partnerships and relationships and whatever, people get in with a lot of take, right? And when both of you get in with a lot of take, there's going to be a deficiency somewhere because somebody is not giving enough. You can't keep taking. So at some point, there's something in that relationship of yours you have to sacrifice. There's something you have to give up. And for many people, that thing that has to be given up, and she mentioned it, for very many powerful, established women, the thing you have to give up is that leadership. and it can be painful, but for your system to function, that must be the sacrifice you must make. So as I said, in every relationship, there is something that the woman or the man must let go of. Otherwise, that relationship won't work. So while you as a person, you're self-assured and you're comfortable in your skin and you're very independent, right? When you meet this other individual, there's a certain independence of yours you have to let go. Because if you don't let go of that independent, you'll be two people in a relationship. And as he will tell you, you can't be two people. You're supposed to be one person, right? So there's something you have to sacrifice. It may not necessarily be this thing that she sacrificed. It may not be that, but there's something you have to sacrifice. So the challenge is for everybody in your different relationship or marriage, the discussion must happen between you and your partner that this is the kind of person I am, and he will tell you, this is the kind of person I am. How are we going to make this relationship work? Remove this, add this, remove this, add this, then it works. Forget about the world. Because the world will always have demands. The society will always have expectations. But for this thing to work, the world is not involved. It's just the two of you. And I want people to always shut out that noise, because society will demand. Your mother will tell you things that, this is what is expected of a woman. But maybe even your husband doesn't need them, right? So then you get sucked into what your mother says a woman is, and you forget that the most important person in this relationship is this your man. This guy here, he doesn't want that thing that your mother is telling you to do. So for many people, the challenge is, I'll allow you to clap, please. So for many people, the challenge is they listen to society a lot more than to their partner. The answer is with your partner. It's as simple as that.
Well said. I think more and more the thing that we are agreeing on, I feel, collectively, is that it comes back down to you. Yeah. What is your anchor? And whatever that anchor is, does it align with the person that you are tying your life to?
Okay, for me, it's not really a question, but it's more of demystification of some of the things that have been said. Because when both of you were having the conversation in terms of it's the woman that's raising the girl, asking her who's going to marry you and so on and so forth, please let's not forget that all these things, as much as it's the mother that's saying them, it's all part of the patriarchal system that those women had to be taught for decades on end for them to actually come to tell their daughters the same thing. So it's not a matter of, oh yeah, women are the one now ruining their girls. No, even those mothers themselves also need to learn. It's actually the system. And I feel like when we are talking about patriarchy, there's so many things we are trying to remove off it to make it look, quote unquote, admirable, desirable, or something that we can actually talk about calmly and peacefully, and so demure, so on and so forth. But it's really not, because if you think about it, there's so many things that have been done to women over the years that make women who they are. And it is what women are unlearning at the moment. So that is one thing I feel like I needed to say so that people have that in mind. It's not your mother's fault, not your grandmother's fault, but it's so many things that have been done to them. And then now the second thing is when we are talking about leadership and submissiveness, let's please remember that it is in your marriages, not at the office, not between you and your mother or anything of that sort. Don't go and start thinking, oh yeah, my boss is a lady, so now I can't let her lead me and so on and so forth. So it's very important when we're having this conversation to bracket it in your head so that you don't start seeing somebody with breasts who can give birth that cannot lead you at the office or in any other spaces. Because it's been so many years of women having to get where they are, so we don't want to ruin that. And then I think the other one, sorry, I had points because this was very important.
Go ahead.
Yes, so he mentioned the scenario of a couple where the mom now is a single mom raising a 10-year-old, and because it's a boy, he wants his father. I just want to mention that it's not just a boy child, because even when my parents were divorcing at that age, I wanted my father. And as you can see, I'm female. I've been female since I was born. So it's just, yeah, I identify as female as well. Heterosexual, thank you. So It's just a child and the relationship a child has had with her parents or his parents. So by default, if you miss one, whether it's the mom who left, whether it's the dad who left, you will crave the person who's not there because you already have the one who's present. So don't think, oh yeah, because now the mom is with the boy, because the father is missing, there's something wrong with the relationship between the mom and whatever. There's no guide to parenting as it is. And you can imagine parenting as a single parent. There is definitely nothing more ghetto than a single parent. But I would have it think I came out quite well, and it just takes time for the mom to learn how to change the gears, and she will. So I think, first of all, give them more grace. Second, if you are an uncle or a neighbor who's thinking that, oh yeah, this boy needs some discipline, because it's discipline that he needs, then sit down with them and guide them and see that. But I don't want us to sit here and start thinking, oh yeah, it's the mom's issue or there's something lacking within the mom. There's nothing lacking within the mom. It's just a matter of parenting, and as a single parent, that is bound to happen because the other parent is not present. And then lastly, I promise, it's the aspect of, the term empowering. I don't think we've been empowering women. Women have been learning. We've been teaching them over the years. Our great-grandparents and so on and so forth were not able to vote, were not able to own land, were not able to open bank accounts. The only thing that has happened to women over the years is to teach them that they can do all these things, that they can hold public office, they can go to work, they can study in STEM, whatever. So I think at the moment what we are doing is learning. What men need to learn is how to see women as human beings. And I feel like we need to have a line. Thank you. We need to have a line between basic things as human beings and then now ideal things as partners. Because there are things we are discussing that men need to, and it's not a matter of us, again, educating them. In the era of the internet, what is your excuse as a 30-something-year-old man not knowing how to talk to a lady or how to treat a lady? Let's be very realistic also in our conversations, as much as we are trying to be peaceful. So there are things that men need to learn or need to know how to treat a fellow human being. There's some things that are borderline assault. That's not even something to talk about. And then now the other things you want to bring on board is fine. How can we further educate them? Further educate them. But the basics, men need to know how to see women as human beings first.
Thank you.
I'd like to add from what you were saying. And you know, the idea is to make this practical. I'm a man, right? I'd like to assume that I'm respectful. So let's not talk about, it's like talking about church. And you think of the church is every church. The church is the church according to the Bible. There's different churches that depict different things, but the church is the church. You know what I'm saying? Don't say, churches go around and abuse people. Church, no, the church is the church. I am not going to identify as the rest of the mandem. I am one the JR. You get what I'm saying? I was raised by a single mom, right? A single mom. Yeah, and it turned out all right, actually, man. And I'm still trying to get better with time by the grace of God, right? So I'm not blaming anyone. It's the importance of understanding the role each person plays. We don't know what we like what we know. The likelihood of one person moving from one abusive relationship to another is because they do not know what they like what they know, right? So, the parent as a dynamic is understanding what that dynamic means and who does what. Animal Kingdom shows us that. The lion, the male lion just stands there and everything aligns. The females know how to fight. They know how to hunt, right? And no one is demeaning anyone. I was raised by a single mom. You know what I'm saying? But it's important to understand what these two people do, which is supposed to be guided by your actions prior. Again, the answer to the world around you is the world within you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Samantha. Most people call me Tay. So the things I wanted to talk about go way back, but disclaimer, I have difficult conversation. I'm always willing to have difficult conversations, so don't get offended. Let's try and learn from one another. I'm happy I'm going after her because she kind of pointed out what I wanted to say. The thing about maybe what that mother told her child, who will marry you? She was told the same by her mom. Her mom was told the same by her grandmother. But one of the things I like about today is there's the woke generation. I'm not going to say Gen Z or millennial because there are woke millennials, there are woke baby boomers. So the woke generation is what I think they are. They are the people who sit down and unlearn those things willingly. Okay, they're like, okay, I may have been told this, but I will not tell my child this. It's an active journey. While what Biwol talked about, self-awareness, you sit down, know who you are, and everything you've been taught that you know is not right, unlearn it. You don't need to pass it on. So I want to urge all of us, as we raise our children, can we not do the things we know were not right that were done to us? We don't blame our mothers and fathers at all. All they knew is all they gave us. We are in position to know better, so let us be that better, right? That was the first thing. The second thing is heal, okay? As you're getting to know what's right and what's wrong, please heal. Take time to go to therapy. Take time to talk to whoever you're comfortable speaking to and heal. Because once you've healed, and Pastor, I'm obviously going to come there and tell you, please find Jesus, because that's where all peace is. When you find him and when you take all these steps to better yourself as a person, you will not be passing down that trauma. You won't be passing it down to the next generation. And then we won't be having the problems of, I grew up being told I won't marry, so I won't do this and this. Another thing, again, sorry, my points were from way before. Biwol talked about raising children, not boys or girls. I love that he also said it's very ideal. It's the ideal way of doing things. But like she mentioned, children, girls and boys have different problems. And I still want my daughter to be soft, but I also want my son to be able to lead. I want him to possess chivalry. And in raising them as just children without pointing out certain things, we might miss those things. We might miss my girl being as feminine and my son being as masculine. I also want, something I've always thought is that both genders possess both traits. There are masculine women and there are men who possess femininity, okay? And it's okay, that's why you'll find there's a hyper-independent lady. So maybe her masculine traits overshadow her femininity. But my friend, if you get a good man, it will disappear. You will come down and be a feminine person. Yeah, like your femininity will take over. So while we raise them, I think it's important that we point those things out for them. And I'm not saying tell your daughter wild things for a 5-year-old. You can't start telling your daughter who will marry you. She's 5. She should be thinking about her homework. But in her littleness, in her age, I will teach her the things. I think we should teach them the things that they will understand at that level. And also, again, it goes back to the unit of a family. If you're husband and wife in your home having your children, your daughters will watch you and your husband. Your sons will watch their dad and their mother. So they will also be able to pick out how daddy treated mommy and how mommy has treated daddy, which is why it goes back to healing first. Such that when you go to your homes, you are both fixed, healed, people ready to change the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha. And may the healing either commence or continue. Because, man, it's progressing. Like he said, it's not perfection, it's constant progression. So, I mean, as we talk about this, I feel like it organically leads us into the next item, which I'd like us to talk about, which is the way I put it down in my notes. Let me just tell you the way I put these things down in my notes. Huh? The way I put it down in my notes is, fellas, are you okay? Are you fine? How are you doing? So, and obviously to talk about, mental health as it pertains specifically to men, not because it doesn't pertain to women, but because there's quite a gap there. I feel one thing I've always wondered, and anyway, before I get deep down into that, this particular segment is sponsored by Zuka Beauty Delivered, who stock top beauty brands from the US and the UK. Please follow them. They sponsored this segment. They're fans of this kind of, let's shake things up and talk about it. So thank you, Zuka Beauty. Now, I've always wondered, because, like for us, for most women, if you have female friends or a sister or whatever, when we get together, like like we dive in, like we dive in. If it's time to cry, we'll be crying. If we're laughing, we're rolling on the ground. If, like we'll get in there and dissect. And sometimes you wonder, because sometimes you just go off of maybe what you've had a couple of guys talking about that one time or those two times, like, but do you guys talk about, like, are you okay, of like, how can I support you? Like, do you what do you guys talk about when you're together? I wonder, what do you guys jazz when you're with Cyrus? What do you guys be jazz? Quencha.
By the way, for Cyrus, we have real jazz, man. Sometimes we might chat rubbish on social media, but in real life, we tend to talk from time to time. I'm learning to do that personally. I'm very deliberate about trying to better myself. So I know it's hard. I do sometimes have interactions and videos with Tura over there. She keeps calling me out, that one that Toka that you haven't yet opened. You're still being a tough guy, but you know what I mean? Which at least I'm not the same. I think I've rather improved from time to time. But I'm very deliberate about having people that I trust, which is a very, very rare thing from the brothers, Otherwise, you find a guy, you pour out, the guy tells you, boss, Wanda, just make money. And the be a hard guy, your family is falling apart, the guy is telling you, just make money. No, what's that? And that's the easiest thing. Your dad tells you, go save a saint of muzanyu. That's the norm. So no one it requires us to be vulnerable. And one thing I keep telling myself is, vulnerability is not susceptibility,
First, break down
You know what I
this
mean?
one for us a bit.
Susceptibility is you choosing to step on me. By the way, clap, boys. Don't be shy, don't be shy. By the way, guys, I want us to clap for the boy child here, man. Guys, put your hands together for the boys. They're in one click day. You guys should have dispersed a bit now, yeah? Next time, we shall do better. So yeah, I think it's not easy, because we've been hardwired to be tough guys, to hide behind the confines of our masculinity, whatever that means. But personally, I am learning to let go, because even like the Bible says in James, confess your faults one unto another that you might get healed. You get me? Because that's where healing comes from. You mentioned healing. I think healing, I find it very therapeutic to open up, to unpack. But you have to unpack to guys you trust. Guys are not going to shoot you down with the same KBs that you give them. It's very hard. So you have to establish a real relationship, real friendships, with the brothers around you, which is rare. I'm not talking about guys you go and turn up with, or guys that you like to, associate with, and what status, we live in a society where we're all trying to put on a show. And so I think authenticity plays a huge role. If I'm on a journey to find my true self, I'll get into contact with people who are also on a similar journey, people that I can trust, that are willing to also walk that journey, and then we start to unpack step by step. I'd like to believe I'm not as badly off as I was with my beliefs and how I was hardwired, how I was programmed. So I'm slowly untethering from all these things I thought I knew that were correct, by simply finding brothers, specifically brothers. This is something that the sisters can't help me on. They can't. They can't, even if they tried. My mom can't help me. She can't even remotely try to go that route. She's tried, and always we're just trying to, the moment I started to find it this side, I can tell you for a fact my relationship with my mom is the best it's been in years, by simply taking this deliberate effort to find people that I can confide in, which for me I think is fellowship in essence. And so, I can't really understand the gospel fully if my insides are not kawa. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think it's easier said than done, but it requires some sort of vulnerability to admit that you don't have it figured out. You're not okay.
Yeah. Speaking of vulnerability, because that's the thing that I think women sometimes wonder about, like, for men. Because I think what a time to be alive, because we're speaking about vulnerability with men. I think it's fantastic. Sometimes things seem so glam, but actually we literally are living our, I don't know, ancestors' wildest dreams. Like, who they didn't know. So speaking of vulnerability, for you, Biwo, have you found that to be more difficult as a man? I mean, even just observing. I don't know if you've had women around you, maybe grown up around women, observing how easy or easier it is for us to just kind of fall into, being vulnerable with each other, with even with men. Has that been difficult? And what's your journey looking like, if you don't mind sharing?
Um, First of all, I speak as an outlier. So most of my life stories might not be popular, right? Um, Vulnerability is a very hard thing for the average man. And I say the average man because the average man is expected to, have a family, have kids, be successful at work, but things don't always align. Things don't always align. And for myself, again, why I'm saying I'm an outlier is because a lot of the things society demands of men, I frown upon as an individual. For example, and now I feel like I've known you guys enough so I can be vulnerable.
We're close now. We're close.
For example, I come from a family where I'm the firstborn, right? So I'm a deputy parent. Yeah, I like that. You know what deputy parents go through. Now, I have siblings, most of whom are married. So first, let that first kind of sit there. I am very single and very content where I am, right? So put that aside. 3, I have no child. I've never had one. And there's a very huge, unlikely kind of stance that I might not have one, right? So in terms of having children, I'm not very sold on the idea. Mostly because, as an individual, I have a lot to unpack. And now when this little fella comes along, I'm going to drag them into my mess. I don't want that. And children have a no-return policy, which is, so when this, you can't, have the child and then say, oh shit, I made a mistake. No, you can't do that, right? So I would rather not make the mistake, right? So that's why I said I'm an outlier. Now, in terms of being vulnerable, I find it easy, right? Because all of my sisters, whenever something happens in their marriage, the first person they call is me, right? So many times, after my sisters called me and we've spoken for an hour and 20 minutes, her husband calls me. And then we talk for another hour, right? So I'm used to listening to, people going through things. And because of that, I have a soft spot for vulnerability. Now, for those who might not know, I was recently a guest of the state. In some establishment with a lake view, and that place broke me, right? As it would any person. When I came out of that place, the first conversation that I had with my doctor, he told me, okay, you're going to go through this whole checkup and all these things and whatever, but you need to speak to somebody, right? Just to kind of unpack what happened. And the first conversation I have with myself, before I even involve anybody else, was the fact that this is some horrible stuff that has happened to me. I don't know if I'll ever heal from this. I want to. But it's very unlikely I will fix it on my own. So I need help. So that's a conversation I have with myself first, before I even, right? Which is where every man should begin. Because as Wanda was saying, that, getting together with men, right? Before you even sit down with your boys and talk, you first talk with yourself, right? First talk with yourself, which most men don't do. This is the self-awareness I was talking about, that most men don't take time to just first have an uncomfortable conversation with themselves. Who am I? What do I worry about? What are my fears? What are my strong points? What are my weak points? Once a man has that conversation with themselves, I can guarantee it's easier for them to have that conversation with somebody else. So the reason why very many men shun or look down upon, therapy and things like that is because they've never spoken to themselves. they've never really sat down to ask themselves questions that, I went through high school and I got bullied from S1 to S6. Have I healed from that? Am I okay? Like, they've never asked themselves those questions, right? So that's the first place. And why, again, I said I'm an outlier is because when I speak with men, I hear, I see, I feel the pain. Like, you can see it, right? But again, the society, and by society, I mean the patriarchy created by the men, has kind of defined that a man has no business being vulnerable. So it's working against us, and it would be in every man's interest to be a part of the fight to bring down the patriarchy, because it allows you to open up and be a full, complete human being. You have moments of weakness. Every human being is allowed moments of weakness, right? And those moments of weakness are what define you as an actual human being. Many men, you've seen many men move around and they're robots, right? They're robots. They're not human beings because they have bottled and shelved pain and sadness and all these things they've gone through. They've kind of archived them somewhere. But the funny thing about those things is they emerge many times when you least expect it, right? Some trauma you haven't dealt with will emerge when you least expect it, when you're raising your little child, right? And you think you've healed, you're okay. And the trauma is like, hello, Or when you have this awesome woman, she respects you, you respect her, you love her, you have this beautiful thing. Then the trauma is like, what's up? So it's always important for men to first have that conversation with themselves. Then the issue of therapy will be a no-brainer. That I can tell you for a fact. That once every man looks in the mirror and first asks himself, before you ask any other man, before you speak to anybody else, you first ask yourself those questions. What kind of person am I? Am I kind? Am I a generous? Am I a jealous person? Am I really, like, if I was looking at me on the outside, would I say I'm a good person? And those are hard questions. So once every man asks themselves that question, therapy will be easy.